Hello, hello, hello.
Hey,
Hello.
hello.
It's Jeff and Caroline and Diana and Shelby today. We're going to read chapter 3 from Blessings, Gifts, and Deeds, and then we're going to interview Shelby and Diana. Right, Jeff?
That's right. You're going to be Joe and I'm going to be Michael.
Right. So in the book, wherever Michael talks, Jeff's going to read. So, all right. So here we go. Chapter 3, Go in Peace. It had been a week since my last meeting with the angel, and I had spent a lot of time. Hold on.
I hear some feedback.
I know. We're going to stop for a second. Okay. Are we good?
Why don't you mute everybody except for yourself? That helps.
It was something here.
Okay.
It's taken care of. Okay. It had been a week since my last meeting with the angel, and I had spent a lot of time thinking about all of this. I wondered where it would all end, but didn't think it would be a good idea to quit my day job. I called my friend Kathleen to see how she was feeling. She has lupus, and from time to time, she becomes quite ill. She told me she was going to Mexico for about a week for treatment in a hospital. Usually, she would be gone for 3 weeks, but money was tight now, and a week would have to do. Kathleen, I said, I want to tell you something that might help, and please don't think I'm nuts or anything. Okay, she said, as sick as I am, I'll try anything. I began to tell her of the night in January and about the baptism. I said she could give it a try and see what happens, but also to take her treatment. I had no idea what effect the baptism would have, if any. She said that she knew there was a reason for our coming together, and from the moment we met, she had felt a connection with me. She believed what I told her and said she would call me when she returned. After saying goodbye and hanging up, I must admit, I started thinking, what if she came back from Mexico cured? Would this mean that the baptism is a cure for disease? What would this do in a world of so much illness? During the week she was gone, I saw Michael again. This time, it was in my truck on the way to work. I remember going up the ramp of the 580 freeway, headed in the direction of the bay. This is in California, by the way. When I heard Michael say,
Put on your seatbelt.
I looked over to the passenger seat, and there he was. But then again, no, he wasn't. Just what I need, I thought. A comedian along for the ride.
I see you have found your first of the 7.
He said. Yeah, and who might that be? I said sarcastically.
Kathleen is going to be just fine. Not cured, for she has sums to work. She will be a challenging student. Listen to her. Though for as a woman, she can see and know things you could miss.
Look, Michael, I have been thinking about your last visit, and there are some things I need to know, such as where do women and the gays fit in? Doesn't the Bible guide people in the direction of God? Aren't we freed from original sin when we are baptized? Wasn't Jesus sent to die for our sins because we are all sinners and would go to hell? Most important of all to me is what am I supposed to do? I asked.
If you could only see that in your questions lay the answer to why. But like the rest of the world, you still think that in the beginning you sinned against God and are being punished for it. I tell you truly, when God created man and woman in spirit, a choice was given to them. They could stay with God in paradise as spirit or become flesh and live on earth. Those that choose to stay are what you know as angels, and the rest of you become flesh. However, I say you all were and are perfect, whole, complete in God's eyes. You choose the path you are on with no memory of the time before you choose. A promise was given to all that would return home. Your path would start and end. It would wind through the time you have mixing with others' past or going off in another direction. Some last for many years, and some are over in the blink of an eye. But whichever one you took, it was your experience. Some of you would like others, you would not. But if you do not choose a direction on the path, the nature of the journey will be chosen for you, and most often you won't like it. You have been taught that a sin is bad and it hurts God. How arrogant of you to think that you are that powerful. I tell you truly that the only thing God feels, or does is love. The word sin only means I have missed the mark I was aiming at, or I made a mistake. No one is sitting in heaven with a tally sheet marking down all the times you have sinned to see if you have been good enough to get into heaven. Are you beginning to see the obsession you have with right, wrong, good, and bad? These are judgments you make and have nothing to do with you coming home, for all will return in time. I say to you again, you are perfect, whole, complete, just the way you are. So act accordingly. Treat one another with honor, dignity, and respect, but most of all, love each other as God loves you. I tell you this, no, Jesus was not given by God to die for the sins of man. You must see that if that was his purpose, he would have died at birth. In the Bible, though, it tells a story that was told over and over and over until it was written down and rewritten to the point that why he was sent has been lost. This is part of your job, to bring back the light that man's ink has darkened over the years. I will tell you what Jesus said and what he taught. You will write it down, not as a new Bible, but as the truth to guide God's children so that they may be healthy, joyous, abundant on their journey home. The Bible has become more important than those it was written for. Perpetuated by ignorance, it is said that only those who have the Holy Spirit in them may read it and understand it. This is a lie. Interpreting it is not understanding. Besides, everyone has the Holy Spirit already in them. Yet the unenlightened will tell you that you don't and are a servant of the devil. Any book that tells you that only it speaks for God lies. Any book that tells you that if you don't believe in the book, the kingdom of heaven is lost to you forever lies. Anyone who tells you, come to me, for I will stand with you before God on your behalf to save your soul, lies. For only you will stand before God for your rewards, and you will stand alone. Jesus said, when you pray, to go into a closet by yourself and be quiet. Speak to God like this: Our Father, which art in heaven, holy is your name, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us your day, our daily bread, forgiven are our debts, and we forgive our debtors. Let us not be in temptation, and deliver us from evil. Don't gather in crowds and pray great prayers for all to hear. Jesus' reason for coming was to teach that when you speak to God, he hears. No one is needed to speak for you, and no one can. When you pray for someone, you are giving a blessing as powerful as any priest can give. There is no such thing as original sin in the Bible sense of it. Baptism is a ritual borrowed from the ancient religion to signify washing away the ignorance of the existence of God. In this symbolic ritual, what you are doing is saying, I remember. Women are the foundation of natural wisdom and true power. Jesus knew this and always had women with him throughout his life. Only after Paul of Tarsus began preaching did women start to lose the place that Jesus recognized they should have. It was the women that taught of Jesus in the catacombs, and the loss of their presence has brought the teachings to the place they are now. As long as humankind has walked the earth, there have been people who are gay, perfect, whole, complete, just the way they are. You see, the more a religion gets accepted, the more it becomes self-righteous in this good versus evil. When forces from the outside begin to let up, it will start putting pressure on itself from the inside, beginning with the smallest number of members who act differently or think differently from the majority. Their actions become no better than those of the ones who persecuted them in the beginning and do it now in the name of God or Jesus or the Bible. Sex is a gift from God for you to give to the one you love as your gift of affection. There is nothing bad or wrong about what gender you give this gift to. It is you, however, it is the choice of the receiver to accept it or not. If you go whoring, you must understand that you're only wasting time, for no bricks are made. You can be sure most religions will be up in arms about this, so let them. When they stand before God and find that He doesn't care, I promise they won't either. My time here is over. We will speak again. Go in peace.
I don't remember the drive over or paying the toll, but there I was, approaching my exit. I wondered if all people who have no memory of 45 minutes driving time have an angel riding with them. I don't think so. After work, I got to thinking about what Michael had told me. I guess I should write a book, I thought. But I am a carpenter, a handyman by trade, and not an author. Why is it when God wants something done, it's always someone without the necessary skills who are chosen to do it? Let's face it, my handwriting is unreadable and my spelling is even worse. So I can see why I was chosen to do this. Yeah, right. I can't stop thinking about this right and wrong or good and bad that Michael keeps bringing up. All right, let's take a look at it and see if it is true that we are all obsessed with it. Is it possible our whole way of thinking is influenced by it? If we pull back far enough to see the whole picture, perhaps it will clear some things up. All around us in the movies, books, and television, we just have to see the good guy triumph over the bad guy. For example, Moses, a good guy, was told by God to go into Egypt and tell Pharaoh, the bad guy, to let the Israelites go. That would be a good thing, and not letting them go is a very bad thing. According to Moses, who is a good guy, if you don't take into account that he only murdered a high official who was only doing his job. So the Pharaoh, bad guy that he is, up and throws Moses out of Egypt rather than having him executed, which, by the way, according to the law, was a good thing to do, and letting him go was a bad thing. Are you with me so far? Good. It is bad if you are not. This good thing that Moses wants the Pharaoh to do will mean that Egypt loses a great deal of its labor force, which will put the whole country into an economical nightmare and possible collapse. But that is okay because it's a good thing to let everybody go. The point I'm trying to make is that throughout history, we as human beings have put God into the same pattern that we live by. Given that God is only love, it is then impossible that good, bad, or right and wrong could exist in the context of love. A simpler way of saying it is we keep bringing God down to our level. Although God is above all this pettiness, I sometimes think this is exactly what the church has been instructing us to do. We have a dog? Maybe. Whose dog is that?
My neighbor, so I just moved in here.
Oh,
They'll be quiet in a minute.
okay. We're almost done. Maybe that is what Michael is telling us. At least it sure does seem this way. So we wanted to bring up a couple of points before we start talking to Shelby and Diana. We were remember we were talking about the on page 38 about sinning and how sinning is you just missed the mark or you made a mistake. and
Yeah.
that God, they're not marking tallies up in heaven to say, "Oh, you had one too many. You can't get into heaven. Sorry." There you go.
That's
You
what
know,
I said. These 3 chapters put a pin in everything that supposedly the people are learning at Sunday school. And that's how I kind of felt. I mean, I said, this doesn't make sense. And it really clarified, like I told you, what I think is God created us, like he said, we're whole, complete, and perfect. And he just sees love. He doesn't see all this other stuff. This is just the path we've chosen when we came down here on earth. So as he said, he's not up, and there's nobody up there tallying how many sins you had. And, that's the score for you to get into heaven, supposedly, of what we've been taught.
right,
So
right.
I was
And
really excited to read that.
yeah, and then on page 42, they were talking about women are the foundation of natural wisdom and true power. And then he also talked about the gay people and sex is a gift and who you share it with is up to you. And God doesn't fault you for that. So I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, that's where I started changing about thinking about gay. I never had really thought about it that much, but I go, oh, wow, that really makes sense. Because you got to realize that all the stuff that you heard about it. Like I was just watching the thing about the '90s, how that was such an abomination and all that stuff. It was crazy, and so yeah, that really changed my thinking on that.
So that brings us into our interview with Shelby. She is the first gathered red. She was in the first gathering, and then Diana was in Shelby's first gathering. And Diana, you were in which number gathering was that? You're on mute, so number 5. She was in the 5th gathering. So questions for Shelby. This is just kind of leading up to your feelings about things. So we kind of want to get a little background, like when you were growing up. When did you know that you were gay? When did you know that you were different?
Probably when I was 14 or 15. I was just noticing my feelings, but back then there wasn't really anything talked about it or supported about it. So I came out like when I was 23 or 24, when I moved to California with my friend and realized that we had feelings for each other.
Nice. So how did it affect you growing up when you were feeling, when you were growing up and you're 14 and 15 and you're saying, oh, I'm not the same as everybody else?
Yeah.
How did you?
I remember I had my hands like this and my energy was down, looking down, because I didn't feel like I belonged with all the female-y women. I didn't want to hear their conversations, and with the guys, I didn't feel like I was part of them either. So I felt like I was an in-betweener, and I didn't even know what that was back then. All I know is it wasn't fun. It just wasn't fun. It was harsh. But it gave me the opportunity to go be by myself. Like I used to ride my bike in the cemetery and just be with nature. So it gave me a chance to learn how to be by myself and enjoy that.
Yeah. So this next question is for both Shelby and Diana. So Shelby, I'll have you answer first, and then Diana. Jeff?
I wanted to see, after Shelby, after you read The Blessing, Gifts, and Deeds, how did you feel about that when he was talking about what we just read about gays? How did that make you feel?
So he gave me a script. I didn't even have the book. Like when I was gathered, the book wasn't even created. It was a script, and it was at LifeSpring. And when I read that, I was like, I think he gave this script to me because he thinks I'm one of them, possibly. So then I went to where he lived in California and talked to him about it, and then confirmed that. So it was kind of like, it just felt like he gave this to me, and it just felt right.
Nice.
Okay.
Okay. So this next question is for both of you. Shelby, if you want to go first, we're just wondering how you met Joe Crane. Both of
So
you.
I met Joe Crane at LifeSpring. And it's a weekend where you take a look at your life and see what's working and what's not. And he had the script, and he was with Mark, who was the original Purple at the time. So I met him on a weekend taking a look at yourself, and he was an assistant to the leader.
Oh, okay. And you, Diana? You're gonna have to go off of mute.
Okay.
There you go.
I first met Joe at Alexander's Love, Life, and Light in Oregon.
Alexander Everett.
Yes, Alexander Everett, yes.
So
His
you had met him years before then? Was that before the LifeSpring?
No, that was after LifeSpring. Alexander first created LifeSpring, and then he gave that to his teachers and started Love, Life, and Light.
Okay.
And that's when I met him. And he had been doing Love, Life, and Light for about 6 or 8 years before I met Joe.
Oh, okay. Okay. So when you both read the manuscript, or well, okay, Shelby, let's go back to Shelby. When did you decide to do the last baptism? Maybe give us a little background on that. After you read the manuscript and you decided, oh, I'm going to do this last baptism.
I think it was maybe 2 or 3 months after I read it, and my partner Jennifer and I did it in the longest day of the year, June 21st, and we were sleeping in a tent, and all of a sudden the tent went. I'm like, what the heck? It was like 5:15, and it was scared the shit out of me. But it was enough. I think it was like the angel shaking the tent, like, go get some food, go get some coffee before you sit out for 6 hours, right? And so I remember sitting out there and remembering when the sun was the highest, and I remember washing my hands and my feet, and I really feel like I had a ever life change from that moment on. I was just like, whoa, I'm here to do God's work. Bring it on.
What about you, Diana? What was your experience with your last baptism?
I was working full time at the time, and I instructed my husband, who we had a business together, that I was going to do something very meaningful and special for me, and I was taking the day off, and he was not to talk to me. So I did the baptism, and honestly, there was nothing earth-shattering. I just know that I had a general peace that came over me, a well-being, that it was right. That it was right. I felt in my heart it was just a true thing, a right thing.
That's wonderful. So we have one who knew, Shelby, who knew she was there to do God's work, and then Diana, who's experienced an incredible peace, which is really kind of neat. That's why wouldn't everybody want to do the last baptism? That's what I think. So we have one more question. I know, Shelby, you said the other time, you also said something about being forever changed, and you also said something about your bat mitzvah when we were talking earlier. Do you want to say anything about that?
When I did my bat mitzvah, like turning into a woman, it was just as spiritual. It's kind of like doing the last baptism, it was like this ceremony in front of like 200 people where I read the Torah that was for the spring, because that was my birthday, and it felt really deep, like Kabbalic deep, and that forever changed me too. It's just like turning from a young person to a woman, taking responsibility.
So would you say they were similar experiences as far as your connection,
no, I would say the the blessings was much more powerful because I knew myself. You know, I was like 32 or something like that. My bat mitzvah, I was 13. But maybe on some kind of a spiritual level, like just energy, like a color, it could have been the same depth. But, you know, now that I think about it.
Okay. Okay.
But the baptism, I did it outside with all these peacocks and horses and cats and dogs. And it was just very earthy. I felt really connected to the earth. It was really special.
That's awesome.
Loved it.
So we have one more question, and then we can take questions from anybody who's listening. For both Shelby and Diana, why don't you give us a little bit about your experience when you were gathered? Shelby,
Okay.
yeah, you can
You
start.
want me to go first?
Yeah.
So basically what happened is we were at Kathleen's house in Martinez. And when I got there, her boyfriend like tried to overdose her the night before. And so she was running around the neighborhood trying to get the drugs out of her body and drinking water. And Steve Harper showed up with all these muffins and drinks and all that. And Gary, and it was really, really, really exciting because we've never done this before. And Joe's like, I don't know what's going to happen because we've never done this before. And so I just don't know. So I remember it took a while to get the configuration of the gate of grace and all that. And I remember Gary and Joe just keep on going back, trying to figure it out, and finally found a resolution after a lot of time. And each person that was in the first one, I think, was Kathleen. And all three women got really, really bad headaches that day. And I don't believe I've ever had a headache since. And that to me is just like crazy, amazing, and I'm grateful. I remember on Saturday night, Joe's like, okay, we're going to wind it up. And then all of a sudden I'm like this. And I couldn't stop myself. And I saw myself get up. And it was me and Kathleen and Deb, like three birds going into a pyramid. And I went to an out-of-body experience, which Joe said lasted 2.5 hours. I thought it was maybe 15 minutes. But I saw us go into this pyramid, and Joe's like, well, what are you doing in this huge pyramid in Egypt? And I could smell Egypt. I knew the time of day, the time of year, everything. And I saw the pyramid wall open up. And then I found a box, and then there was a key in there. And it was like, what's this key for? And I said, to open people's hearts. So I went, shoo, and there's all these people like mob, or before they turn into butterflies, lying on the ground, all like 500 of them. And I did one to my sister and one to my dad. I didn't know who they were at the time. And they each got married within a year and fell deeply in love. So it was like I'm here because of that gathering to open up people's hearts. And so that's what I've been doing since the first gathering, is just opening people's hearts, and my own too, and my own healing, and opening up people's hearts. And I remember in the morning that Deb and Kathleen just petted me for hours. I was just, I just went through some kind of a vortex or some kind of a amazing energy that just went, whew. And I remember Steve saying, do you know an angel just went right through you? And he was to the left of me. And I kind of sensed it going, whoa. I've been doing the Power of 8 with Diana and Gregory Joseph, actually. And what happened during that time is I saw the original Gate of Grace that we were in, the original gathering. It kind of came back to me and downloaded into my system now.
Want me to answer? Okay.
So anyway, it's been a profound time. And then also when I do this Power of 8, I also can see the Gate of Grace that Diana and Gregory and everybody was in the 5th gathering. I could see that energy now. It's like after all these years, just like poof, it's right there. It's really amazing and powerful.
Which brings us to Diana. Did you want to tell us about your gathering? You're on mute, sweetheart.
Okay, I'm back. There was noise here and I didn't want it to transmit to y'all. I grew up with a worthiness issue, and Shelby had to convince me that I was worthy to be in this gathering. I did the baptism because I just knew it was for everyone to do. But I never thought that I was worthy enough to be gathered. That's not for me. I will do whatever for anybody, but I'm not worthy of that. And she had to convince me. I was the last one, and it took her like 2 months to convince me. Finally, I showed up, and there I was, and I was, of course, the last person to stand up because, of course, my worthiness issues were there again. And when I got into the center of all these beautiful beings that had already had their experience, and were just holding me so gently and lovingly, it was hard for me to come back also. And I was facing the staircase of the house we were in, and coming down the staircase, my eyes were closed. I could see all these beautiful points of light in all different colors, all the colors of our rainbow. And I knew that they were angelic beings. So this was my very first time experiencing that I'm aware of angelic beings, that I'm aware of it at the time. I go backwards and I can see that they were there with me all throughout my life. But it was very profound for me. And from that moment on, I realized I am a worthy being. And I learned that I didn't have to put myself last or down, or that others weren't above me, as I am not above anyone else just because I lost my worthiness issues. So it's very healing and loving for me.
Really profound.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I want to say, after everybody left, I closed the door and I was walking out of the house, and I'm like, wow, I just grew 30 years. I mean, I deeply knew that. I was like, whoa. And so I feel like I know things that I think other people know, but they don't. And I just so in love with all of this work and everybody.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's very cool then. So you basically got your divine purpose of why you're on this planet, Shelby.
Heart
And
open.
Diane found out she's whole, complete, and perfect the way she is. And we all are that.
Yeah.
That's
And the
That's
finger
awesome.
that I pointed with at the original gathering was my pointer finger, and I used that to photograph. So when I photograph, I open up people's hearts. I'm a spiritual photographer, and I realized putting that all together is like, whew. It's like, that's what I do with my camera. And I get these amazing pictures, then people love themselves because of them.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
shows in your work.
Like Caroline's family portrait.
Yeah.
And mine.
And yours.
So excuse me. We have a question from Jose. And if I remember the question correctly, he said, is there a place in my life for the Bible? And that's kind of, I mean, if anybody wants to take a crack at that, I mean, I know what I feel.
Say the question again. What is it again?
Is there a place in my life for the Bible?
Oh, okay.
No, I gave up the Bible when I was about 14. Long before I was introduced to this, I knew I had my aunt had a stillborn child, and I was at church with my girlfriend, and the minister told us that anyone who hadn't been baptized could not make it any further than purgatory And I stood up in the church and told him I thought he was wrong. I knew he was wrong. This was there's no way that my baby cousin, who was stillborn, had sinned, and in his eyes, or in the eyes of the church. And from that day on, I had no organized religion in my life.
Yeah, for me, I've never like studied the Bible, but I studied Torah and all that. And it just doesn't resonate with me anymore. I mean, I love my culture, I love the food, I love the music, but the words, oh, not so much.
I never really studied the Bible, but I know, just like the Angel Michael said in there, I know there's truths, but he said it's been rewritten and rewritten and rewritten.
Right.
And that's the thing, the deception comes in there, and it's all for a purpose. But there are truths in the Bible. And I just tell somebody, listen, what you have to do is read it. Like you said, if the words don't resonate with you, then, it's probably not on your path. But I believe there are truths in the Bible.
Yeah.
And what resonates with you, take it, that's what you believe, and the other, if you don't.
I think there's
I
glimmers of
believe
truth.
there's something in there for everybody.
I think there's
What?
glimmers of truth,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but it's been rewritten so much and interpreted
Right.
in ways that are controlling,
Right.
that there's not a whole lot there that I can give a whole lot of credence to.
Yeah, that's why it really resonated with me, and what, Angel Michael said. It's been rewritten, and, like when he said, put down the man's words because the ink has been, it's changed.
Darkened.
So that's what I said. There are some truths, but they've been manipulated to control us, and that's the thing. But there are truths in there.
So I have another question from Jose. He said that he did not have an experience doing the last baptism. Could he have done it wrong? Does anybody want to say anything
I
to
don't
that
think
one?
so.
No,
I don't think you can, if your intent is right, you can't do anything wrong spiritually. It's all about your intentions.
Yeah.
So, like Joe always says, God is very forgiving. If you don't do something a certain way, they don't go, oh yeah, just like sinning, all that crap. People say, oh, you didn't do it right. Yeah, you're out. It doesn't go like that. It's your intentions.
I think like for Jose, it's like, how open were you when you did it? Not that you did it wrong. So how open were you to all different possibilities? Or did you have other thoughts maybe?
I know that some people go through life and hear and see nothing from topside. And some people go through life and they can see and they can hear and they can feel things from the other side. So it's possible that Jose won't ever. But on the other hand, it's possible that he could. But if it's in his contract to not hear or see or feel, then he won't. They won't allow it. And if he wants to change his contract, he can certainly ask for that.
Yeah.
That's what I say. Everybody's on their own path. So they're going to have their own experience, like you said, their own contract. So it happens, that's why it's good to get everybody's, experience, because it's all different. It's not good or bad. It's just your experience and your path.
Yeah, like Jose could maybe ask to see more, to feel more, or to ask what I could do to do that. You know what I mean? Like Michael said, you're on your journey. You could instruct your journey a little bit, or you can just let it happen if you want.
Yeah. Well, having said that, I don't think we have any more questions right now. But I'd like to thank Diana and Shelby, Cherie, and Jeff, and I'm Caroline, and I think we're done unless you guys have anything closing you want to say.
So like for me, I'm the first red, I'm woman, and I'm gay. And I was thinking about that today. It's like, I really can make a difference in the world. I could really help because I was the first gathered. I'm a woman and I'm gay and I'm so intuitive. And I just sit back and I always say, life is happening better than I can expect it, and there's nothing I can do about it. And I live my life that way. And like today, there's solar at the South Yuba Club, and so I said, what kind of panels? And they're like LG. And then I called the guy up and I said, I'm really passionate about selling solar, and he wants me to come see him tomorrow. So it's like I have the possibility to help the planet by selling solar, but I know what to say, and it's just like pom pom pom, and I feel like I'm so in sync. And sometimes I have bad days, and I just kind of push through it, and I use my tuning forks a lot to help change those energies. And I asked Diana a lot. We work really well together. Diana and I think because we're in the 5th gathering, we have this connection like I have with nobody else. You know what I mean? And with the 1st gathering as well. So it's nice to work with the people that you've been in the gathering with, to work with the energies using the violet way. She can use the red way. You know what I mean? To
That's
like
awesome.
really ground in why we're here and really do the best job we can with what we have. So that's what I have to say.
Awesome.
I got a question for you, Caroline, for the people that don't know. We haven't got to that point, but what is a gate of grace? You use that a certain.
That's interesting that you are asking that question today, because I just had a conversation with Diana today about that. It's a star tetrahedron. It's a pyramid, 4 sides pointing up, and then another pyramid pointing down, 4-sided on the bottom. And then it spins and it creates a ball, a
But they
ball in the center.
intersect also.
What's it
They
made of?
It's like boom, 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 boom,
Well,
boom, boom.
you use stones to represent and set it up, but
on
the stones
all
aren't.
roads.
But they're
Yes,
set
but
in certain spots. So
you
it
set the
creates,
stones
it
in
creates like
certain
a
spots, and it
vortex.
creates the 2 pyramids that spin in opposite directions, and then it creates a ball of energy called a ball of grace. And inside the ball, you can have profound healing happen. You can have clear communications with people on the other side. Lots of different things can happen with that gate.
Would
and
you
we'll
say
get
it kind
into-
of creates a portal?
It's
I
a
would
portal.
say maybe, yeah.
Okay.
But one of it would be one that's for you to commune with your guides, or with
Can anybody set one of these
God,
up?
or anybody can set up a gate of grace.
Okay.
Yes, and we will get into that and how to do that in future videos.
Right.
Would it be helpful if
But
you're
our-
gathered before you set up a gate of grace?
Well, I wasn't gathered when I set up my first one. I just knew I had to set one up.
Okay.
So you don't have to be, but yeah, it's a good thing to be gathered. It's more important, I think, to do your last baptism first,
Yeah, absolutely.
so that you have your own personal connection to God. Like Jesus said, go into the closet and pray. It's going into your heart, and the last baptism helps facilitate that. So taking away the gate of grace is wonderful, and we will get into that in future episodes. But our next episode, we're going to be doing chapter 4 and possibly chapter 5 of Blessings, Gifts, and Deeds, and then we'll decide what we're going to talk about after that too. So that's something to look forward to, our next couple of chapters in the book. And thank you, Diana. Thank you, Shelby, and Jeff. It's a pleasure.
I want to
Caroline?
thank Caroline and Jeff for doing this work. I know you 2 stepped up last year and really were passionate about getting this work out, and it's working. I feel it's just pumping. So I know this coming event is going to be historical and hysterical and amazing.
Yes, our next Angel Conference, Children of Light Conference. It's going to be called the Grand Gathering, and it's going to be in June of this year. And we'll get more information to you on that as well. Right.
Go to beatpeace.net.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah,
Perfect.
beat peace.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Blessings.
Thank you.
Blessings.
Goodbye.
Blessings.
Have a good one. All right. Thanks, Ben.